That decision that she unveiled this week, that the Grenfell Tower, where 72 people died, should come down, is a huge moment. I spoke to her yesterday, but why did the choice on Grenfell leave her under attack from some of the survivors?
I knew when I took on this role that this was something that was going to be really difficult, but a really important piece of work that had to be done. And therefore making the decision was something that I spoke to the Grenfell community, including bereaved and survivors. There isn't a consensus. I don't think you ever will find that. It's devastating what happened, but what I want to try and do is work with the Grenfell community, the bereaved survivors, to make sure that we do justice to the fact that there is a sacred place, people lost their lives there, and make sure that there is a lasting memorial on that site. So I felt, weighing up all of the different conversations that I had and the engineering report, that actually the only way forward really was to sensitively make sure that we start the taking away the tower to ground floor level.
The whole situation here is very sensitive, but some of those who were bereaved or survivors of the fire felt that this week when they met you, that your behaviour in the meeting was very upsetting. One of them told us the government's ruined relationships with the families in half an hour. It was a car crash. Another survivor of the fire suggested that you were even defensive, even aggressive.
Well, I certainly don't feel like I was aggressive, and if anyone felt that way, then I would be sincerely upset about that. I think what I tried to do is take a really difficult meeting and explain to people and make sure that those that were bereaved had that information and the survivors had that information before the decision was made public.
But something obviously has gone wrong here. How many families had you spoken to about the decision?
Well, I'd spoke to a number of the bereaved families. Now, the reason I wouldn't give exact figures, because some is how many people in one family, how many people are directly connected, like next of kin, for example. There's lots of different complexities to people who were affected. Now, I know that some people in that room felt that they hadn't been given the opportunity before then. I listened to what they said, and my conclusion was still that there was not a possibility really for that tower to remain as it is going into the future. And I tried to deliver that message as sensitively as I possibly could, knowing full well that it was going to be really upsetting for people to hear that, but I wanted them to hear it from me.
Specifically on this issue of the demolition of the tower, can you tell us now how many families or survivors you spoke to?
I'm not going to go into details of, well, which family, which were next of kin, which were the community, because I think that that's even more insensitive to the various different views. But what I will say is that there wasn't a consensus amongst any of the various different people who were affected by the fire. But the crucial thing that I think the families wanted to get over was that they didn't want people to forget, and they didn't want justice not to be served.
Of course, beyond the specific situation around the tower, that disaster, those appalling failures also revealed that many people around the country were living in properties that had dangerous cladding. So just before we move on to your broader plans, can you tell us right now how many people or how many households will be sleeping tonight in a building that still has dangerous cladding?
Well, there's over 4,000 buildings that were identified that are over 18 metres with flammable cladding when I became Secretary of State. Some of those have carried out the remediation, but over half of them still haven't had the remediation. I put a remediation action plan together, which majority of the developers and the freeholders have agreed to take that action by the end of this Parliament, because it's taken far too long to remediate those buildings.
And the end of the Parliament is still 2029. I mean, it's 2025.
It is, and we've had 7 years, and we haven't even had over half of them even put into the programme.
So surely you now, as Deputy Prime Minister, one of the most powerful people in the country, should be calling for more pressure, more speedy action. Well, you care about this issue.
Absolutely, and
shouldn't you be banging the table and telling them to get on with it?
Well, it's exactly what I did. I brought them all into a room and said, this is not good enough. This is not acceptable. If that was your loved one, if that was your child or your daughter or son that has bought a property and no fault of their own, they're living in this property now where they know it's wrapped in flammable materials. I've already taken action with those companies and made sure that they know that if they don't do what they need to do, that we will if we have to improve the law, we'll take more legal action against them, and more legal action has been taken since we got into power to make sure that those people know we mean business and we expect them to make these buildings safe.